Good morning, everyone. So my name is Ben Kwak. I work for the undergraduate admissions office at UCLA. So one of my main responsibilities, as you may assume, is that I do read applications, usually a lot, into the thousands sometimes. So what I'm going to do this morning, I think I have about 30 minutes. So I'm going to go over some of what the UC system is briefly about, and I'm sure most of you guys are here because you want to know what the admissions process is like. So should I be louder? Okay. Oh, so I'll speak even louder. Hold on. I'm going to do that. Let me move this up a little bit. Yes, that's good. Okay, so that's going to be the general overview, and hopefully I have a tendency to talk a little fast, but I will try to slow down. And if there's anything that may be unclear, and if I'll try to, if you get my attention, I'll try to call on you. But I will try to leave about 5 minutes for question and answer after the presentation. And I have my table right over there, so you guys are welcome to ask me, stop over at the booth and grab our material. And feel free to ask anything you want. The worst, situation never hurts to ask. Worst thing that could happen is I'm gonna say I don't know, or just say no, I guess. So, but let me just briefly introduce you to what the University of California is like and what your tax dollars is working in the higher education system. So UC was established about 150 years ago, the first campus being UC Berkeley. And there are 4 segments in the University of, in the California higher education. Higher education means anything after high school. So the 3 systems that is state funded or assisted, which means that your state tax dollars at work, is the community colleges. There are 121 right now. And I'm sure there's one very close by here. Oh yeah, Rio Honda. There's also the Cal State system, the CSU. And then the last system that's state assisted and funded is the UCs. The 4th segment is the private schools, the most well-known ones like being Stanford or Pomona College in the liberal arts. And there are literally, I believe, hundreds of them depending on how well and prestigious they are to the small, lesser-known universities and colleges. What separates the UCs from the CSUs and the community colleges is research, and that's why it's highlighted, because all state-funded universities and colleges will do the teaching, and they encourage and have opportunities to serve and volunteer and provide and give back to the state or your local region. And I think in the UC system, generally we hope that students even give back not just to their local community, but maybe even the nation and the world, because those are the kind of quality of students that we try to encourage and foster in the UC system. So a good example of research sometimes is, another word for research I like to use is discovery. Something that we do not know right now, but we are seeking to learn. That's the reason why UCLA has a budget about $4 billion a year, for example, and about approximately $1 billion of that budget is solely based on research. So, and that's the reason why UCLA is not just known in Los Angeles or state of California, but nationally, internationally, because of the quality of faculty and students that are contributing to something that we do not know right now. And that's across the board amongst all the UC campuses. You may be aware that some campuses are more well known than others, and usually LA and Berkeley are the 2 most well known. But I hope that you're aware that all 10 are world-class institutions, and I will have an opportunity to brag about UCLA a little bit later in the presentation, so I'll just kind of pass through that. But keep in mind, another way to understand research is students will be working with innovators and catalysts for new knowledge. These are the type of faculty or professors that are working in the university. The big advantage of that is that professors are required, expected to keep on doing research, but that also means that there's a lot of opportunities for students to be part of that research, assist professors to do research. And that always looks good when you're applying for jobs, filling out your resume, as well as if you're interested in graduate school. A lot of graduate schools expect students now to be involved in some level of research, and there's a lot of opportunities in the UC system. But sometimes the disadvantage of that is that because the professors are so focused on, or highly encouraged to do research, that some professors are not the most personable, engaging type of instructors. They always are available because all professors are required to have office hours, but the students are very encouraged to take the initiative because the professors are not going to, after class, they'll stick around and take questions and engage with the students, but they're not going to per se, oh, I noticed that student over there, I'm going to go talk to him today, and the next week I'm going to talk to the student that's sitting in that corner or something. But I hope that you understand also that's how the world works. No one's gonna, if you just sit around and just wait for something good to happen to you, usually it's gonna take a long time or never happen. And so obviously a university system like UC fosters and encourages students to take action. And those are the type of students actually we're looking for, as we consider students for admissions. And these are some of the really prestigious awards that UC faculty have won, like the Nobel Prize, Pulitzer, different kind of fellowships and scholarships. There are approximately 220,000 students, and 90% of those students are California residents. That's one thing to always keep in mind is that UC, the word C stands for California, so the priority will always go to the California residents. So that will never change. And that's something that even with the budgetary concerns and all the things that are going on in the news, things are changing to some extent, but always the priority will go first to California residents. And then the 10% are from across the United States and the world, and I think that's a very good thing as well, because one great thing about the research institution is that the students, there's a lot of opportunities to go abroad and study abroad for the summer, maybe for half a year or a full year, but the world also comes to them. One good example of UC is that a couple years ago, the UN General Secretary Ban Ki-moon came to UCLA and gave a speech. And there's always those kind of things that are going on constantly in the UC system. So UCs are also known for having professional schools. Amongst the California universities types, as I mentioned, community colleges, CSUs, and UCs, UCs are the only ones that have like some of the specific professional schools, like medical school, law school. So UCs also have business schools or school of management, and Cal State does as well. But for the most part, UCs are the only ones that give out doctorate degrees, like PhDs. And then there's other great resources, but we're time limited, so we're just going to skip through that. So these are the 10 campuses throughout California. 5 of them are in the Northern California region, and the other 5 are in the Southern California region. And all students could apply to 9 out of the 10. The only exception would be University of UC San Francisco, because they only give out master's and PhD type degrees. And if you want to go into the health sciences, that is one of the best institutions you could go in the world, because they have the top 5 medical school, #1 pharmacy school in the nation. That's how highly they're ranked. So that's something that a lot of students in the UC system actually strive for, is if you want to be a doctor, or if you want to get a PhD and do research on curing cancer, that's one of the best places to go. UCLA has a really good medical school too, but I don't want to just talk about UCLA, right? So there are a lot of opportunities, and we do encourage students to apply broadly. If you're going to apply to the UC system, we generally recommend students apply to about 3 to 4, because there are different levels of competitiveness. Some campuses are more competitive and selective in admissions than some of the other UCs. Some UCs are less competitive, and they are more accessible for admissions. Amongst the 9 campuses, generally by percentage, you don't want to just go by percentage, but the 2 most competitive campuses are UC Berkeley and UCLA, and the percentage rate is very, very similar. It's in the low to mid-20s. Then there are UC San Diego is the next competitive campus. Then UC, thank you. And the UC Davis, UC Irvine, and Santa Barbara are similar in competitiveness because the UCs have been getting more applications and gaining popularity. They used to be around 50% admissions rate. Now it's more closer to 40%. And then the next 3 campuses that are the most accessible are Santa Cruz, Riverside, and Merced. So this is where I'm going to spend most of my time is how do you get in? What are we looking for? What are the first requirements for admissions? In the UC system, there are 3 things that students will look for, and most students are admitted through the statewide. There's 3 ways to be admitted, but what you see in this screen is the most common way that students are admitted. The first requirement is the A through G course requirements. So there are 7 different subject areas that students need to satisfy, and this is the minimum. There's 15 courses you need to take. This is the minimum all students need to take to be eligible, but the more you take, the more competitive you will be for admissions. That's very, very important because this is the minimum to be eligible, to be considered, get the full review for admissions. But because, for example, most UCs right now receive about 40 to 50,000 applications. UCLA broke the record last year again. We had about almost 52,000 students that applied from high school, which is the most in the United States. We admitted about 12,000 students last year. Are there more students that we would like to admit? Yes. Were there a lot more students than 12,000 that qualify for admissions? Absolutely. So in the end, it is a competition in which there are some limited spots for admissions, and the best students, the most qualified students who have achieved the most based on their admissions criteria are the ones that are going to be admitted. And that's with all universities, no matter how competitive they are or very accessible, because there are universities where the admissions rate may be 70, 80%, but there are especially Ivy League schools and Stanford where the admissions rate may be as low as 7, 8%. So you want to put yourself in the best situation possible. So just meeting the minimum requirements usually may not get you to the university that you would like to attend and what you're striving for. So keep this in mind. The first requirement, again, for most students that I review for the UCLA admissions, for history and social sciences, which are like history classes, maybe like psychology type of courses, at UCLA, because again, it is one of the most competitive campuses, and actually it's the second most competitive public school for admissions in the United States. I look for at least 3, sometimes 4 years worth of those kind of courses. But again, the more the better. Doesn't mean that if you just hit the minimum that you have no chance at all, but it does minimize your chances. The second requirement is the examination. One change that has been made starting this year, so congratulations for all the seniors and following from now on, is that the SAT 2, officially called SAT subject exam, is no longer required in the UC system, except for specific majors that may require it. For UCLA, no students have to take SAT subject exams except for engineering majors. Engineering still does require students to take math level 2 and a science subject, which may be chemistry, physics, or biology. So that's what, and for engineering majors, if you don't take that, even though it's not required for admission, they're significantly at a disadvantage. Some other campuses in the UC system, most of the majors will not require it, but some may. So make sure you do the research and take those subject exams if they require. If not, only thing we're looking for is SAT reasoning, which is most commonly called SAT 1, or ACT with the writing. That's very important because there's ACT and then there's ACT with writing. If you just take ACT, we will not accept it. It has to have the writing component. And then the last thing that we require is the GPA. The minimum GPA to meet the requirement for admissions is 3.0, and that's based on a UC weighted GPA. I'm not going to go too much into that, but we do give points, extra points in your grade if you take honors or AP, or even now IB, International Baccalaureate type of courses. So it's, if you had a 2.8 unweighted GPA, but you took a lot of honors courses and you got the extra point in your GPA, maybe the weighted GPA, UC weighted GPA, maybe more like 3.2 or 3.4, then you will still be eligible for that. And the GPA is based only from your sophomore and junior year. We do look at your strength of your senior year, and the expectation overall at a competitive campus like UCLA is that your senior year should be the most challenging. You should have a lot of honors and AP type of courses. You don't want to take a break because you work really, really hard. In senior year is the time to have a party, which I'm sure for the students, parents would no way, just like me. So that's very, very important. You don't want to relax on your senior year because we definitely look at what kind of classes that you're taking. And if you're not taking challenging courses, you're automatically going to be less competitive for admissions. So those things are to keep in mind. I'm going to talk briefly about how UCLA does admissions. UCLA looks at 2 GPA. One GPA is considered unweighted, which is in a 4.0 scale. So the highest grade you get is a 4.0 if you get straight A's your sophomore and junior year. But we also look at what's called a fully weighted GPA. So anytime you take UC recognized honors courses or AP or even college level courses you may take at a community college or different colleges that we deem as transferable, you get an extra point. So a student may have an A, weighted GPA wise, we'll give them the extra point, so it'll be on a 5 point. We'll give them 5 points for that grade. And at UCLA, because of the competitiveness, we do like students that like to challenge themselves. So we put a little more weight on the fully weighted GPA than the unweighted GPA. So if a student has a 3.8, but they take a really lot of honors AP type of courses, and their weighted GPA, let's say, is a 4.5 or something like that. And the students at their school, there are students that may have gotten straight A's, 4.0, but they didn't take any honors courses, right? Or maybe 1 or 2, and their GPA is a 4.1 or 4.2. We like students that have the 4.5. We like students that challenge themselves. We do like students because that's what the university is like. That's the environment in which students are going to step in at a campus like UCLA and a lot of the UCs. So we do like students to challenge themselves, and that's what I would encourage you to do. One other thing I want to mention briefly is that in the UC system generally, we put more weight on your 4 years of college work. So that includes GPA and what kind of classes you're taking, than your SATs. We want to reward students for the 4 years worth of work. Then you may be studying, over the summer, maybe going to some of the academies or study on your own and having a really good Saturday. We would like to, put more weight on the 4 years worth of work, staying late, doing projects, and studying together with your group or on your own is what we like to reward. But keep in mind, some universities may have very similar weight. Some schools will emphasize more on the SAT than maybe some of the UCs will. And realistically, the average SAT score at UCLA last year was 2029, so that's exceptional.